Welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. But first off, man, thank you for making time. I know you got a crazy busy schedule. I know you got a meeting right after this, so I appreciate you making the time on a crazy day like today.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me. I moved the meeting 30 minutes, so we're good.
Oh, there we go.
So we got some buffer.
There we go. We got some time. So, all right. So, let's start off with kind of a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so my name is Michael George. I've spent, basically my whole career, we'll take it off from the top, but when I was 15, I got really into music. I was never like an athlete. I could never really play sports well enough to be competitive. And I could never really play instruments well enough to be in a band. And my friends all ended up being in bands. And I was kind of, I gravitated towards hanging out with them and all this different music that was being creative. And then I'll never forget, like I was with my buddies and they were in a band. And they mentioned how this promoter screwed them over. And I don't know what happened or why, but, basically I just knew in that moment that I could do what they needed and not screw them over. And so, at 15 and in May of whatever this was, like 2003, like I threw my first show, like borrowing money from my mom and turned like 200 into 2000 and everyone made money and the bands were happy. And that was kind of it. My whole like career has followed that path. Basically, right from there, it went to continuing to throw shows. They were pop punk, emo, hardcore shows on Long Island. We got really good at them. We actually used to throw them at my temple. It was 1,000 capacity social hall. And I convinced them to let me rent it for $500. And I would have like 14 bands going, floor to stage, back and forth. From noon all the way to like the nighttime. And it was like this epic moment in time. We'd do like 2,000 kids every month. And then I went and studied the music business at Syracuse, where like I ended up working everywhere from, Sony ATV to the agency group, to AEG, and basically got my hands wet everywhere. And, all along this whole time, I was always committed to like learning everything and doing it myself. So, even when I was throwing a show, I was the guy making the flyer and designing the tickets, right? I wasn't hiring that out. Web design, like we couldn't afford to have someone build it. So, I learned how to code and I was going to do that. And so I kept doing that while I was at Syracuse. And going into my senior year, I discovered a kid named Hoodie and we worked together for a while. We had a lot of success together. That's why I ended up back in your home state a couple times on tour.
There we go.
And we ended up having the number 10 Billboard debut right after I graduated from college. This is like pre Spotify really being a thing. This is all like Apple iTunes downloads. And then about a year after that, I flew to LA on a one-way ticket. I took my friend from college was Scooter's assistant. And she hooked me up with a meeting with Scooter. And Scooter basically saw everything I'd built with Hoodie and was like, I could really use someone like you. I think what you actually need is just a place to go and run wild with like someone, supporting you and giving you their blessing. And so, he put me on payroll at like a pretty small salary, but made me a 50-50 partner on everything that I brought in. He said to me, "What hip hop artist do you want to sign?" And I was like, bro, I was friends with Jake Udell at this point. And Jake was managing Cruella. And I knew that like we could sell the same amount of tickets with Hoodie Allen that he could sell for Cruella, but he would get way more money because ticket prices could be higher. And the fans, right, they drink booze. So it's like a little bit of a different equation for a venue. They can make a bigger offer, right? Because they have more. So I told Scooter, look, man, you got to be in dance music. Like, this is like the next wave. This is the future. And he literally said, like, I don't know anything about dance music. Go do whatever you want. Somehow I convinced Scooter to let me fly to Miami like 3 weeks after starting. And then my buddy Brett, who works with me at Wave 7, Brett was flying down. He was just getting his feet wet. He was about to start working at Dancing Astronaut. And we both like split a bedroom with two other dudes. And it was like, 4 dudes in this room. we were able to like finagle artist passes and like be backstage and whatever. And Brett and another buddy basically introduced me to 15-year-old Martin Garrix at that time. This is like before Animals. And my buddy was just like sneaking Martin into all the pool parties. So we met, we said hello. Nothing really came from that. But when we flew home, Brett followed up with me. He was like, how are you not like signing Martin Garrix right now? I was like, well, bro, like, the first rule of management is you never poach anyone, or at least that's my rule, right? You only work with people who want to work with you. And he already had a manager. And Brett said something that I guess in theory changed my life, right? Brett was like, well, maybe he wants a U.S. representation. Maybe it matters to him to have people on the ground here. Why don't you just have a conversation, have him introduce you to his managers and see if there's a deal to be made. And, in short, I had a convo with Martijn. We got along amazing. He introduced me to the guys who run Spinning Records, Ilko and Roger. This is way back in the day. And yeah, next thing we knew, we were 50-50 partners, Scooter and I, with these guys from the Netherlands. And, we put out Animals, and the rest is kind of history. That's like a lot of backstory into my music career and kind of how I got everywhere. And then, about 3 or 4 years ago now, Martin stopped working with Scooter and I, which is kind of the way management things go. They have like a life cycle for the most part, and then people separate at different parts of their career. And I kind of went out on my own. I still manage these two artists, Eden and Between Friends, who are awesome. And coming into, this last like cycle. So at some point during 2020, I guess, or 2021, I'm sorry if I'm getting the years wrong, but basically, I start seeing everything start to happen in Web3 again. And I was like an ICO participant and a retail trader. And like, everyone at SB Projects used to make fun of me because like, I'd just constantly be pitching them on different like coins they need to get into and projects they need to get into and why the blockchain matters and so on back in 16 and 17. And so I see this wave happening again, and I realize like, I'm not a good retail trader. I'm horrible at it. It's not, I don't have like the emotional ability to like sell out of a position. Just kind of like you, we talked about it before. Yeah. I basically hold everything forever, right?
Yep, that's me too.
Yeah. So I'm chatting with Carlo and Brett. So Carlo is my partner in WAGMI Beach, and Brett is my partner in Wave 7. And we kind of and Josh and Ben are also partners with Carlo at Independent and partners in both of those businesses. And we're basically all speaking and realize like we're getting involved in this world again. And we come up with this idea to start a principal-backed fund, which means we have no other LPs. It's just our money, and we're just investing in things we want to invest in. Because we realize we have a really unique value prop. We have spent 15 to 20 years plus in the music and entertainment industry at the highest level. Brett was employee number one at the music tech startup Splice, where they did over 800 content deals while he was there, which he was the lead on, deals with like Deadmau5 and Diplo and, Marshmello and Cashmere, whoever it might be. Josh, Ben, and Carlo run an independent distribution business known as Independent Co. that has 100 plus artists that go through their pipes. And they also run a management business where they manage guys like the Martinez brothers or Cashmere, Yuna, Kyle, a bunch of amazing acts. And we've all been friends for over, decade plus. So basically we realized that, we've always been helping founders if you just replace the word artist with founder. And that's really what they are at the end of the day. We've always spent our careers, fighting for artists and representing them. So we said, let's start this fund up. Let's see, if people fuck with our value prop. Like if they actually, appreciate the network we can bring, the insight we can bring. And so we're not just another, Web3 venture capital firm. We're actually like people who want to get our hands dirty and can explain to you how to like get mass consumer adoption, et cetera. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. We ended up investing in things like Sabre or Step In or Gunzilla or, tons of really interesting projects. And because of our investment in Sabre, we ended up, using Solana, right? And once you kind of use Solana, you have a light bulb that goes off. I think everyone does, but we especially. And it just started getting my mind racing. Like, okay, wait, all of our friends at all the major record labels, all our friends at all the talent agencies are all trying to figure out how to navigate NFTs, but they're doing so on Ethereum, which is like, the speed of transactions and the cost of transactions is cost prohibitive to like onboard, the next 100 million users, let's say. And once you use Solana, you're like, oh, well, here's your solution. So how do we start convincing people to come into this space? So, we invest in Saber, right? I use Saber. I get red pilled on Solana. And then what does a DGen do? A DGen starts buying NFTs.
I was going to say, you ape in.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So Carlo and I kind of just went absolutely like crazy. Like we I think he's got 4 or 5 SMBs. We minted everything early. I mean, we minted DGOTs, we minted, geckos. We're basically mint crazy for like that whole period of time, and just diving into the ecosystem. But really early when we were doing it, I mean, this is back when like DAA minted and like all these different things were minting.
Thugbirds and everything like that.
Everything. I it's funny. I didn't like mint Thugbirds, but I was on the page. Like, I don't know why I didn't mint it. And I didn't mint DAA. And like, again, I was on the page. Like, I don't know what the fuck I was doing, but these are different things that like we were here then, and we haven't left. And essentially we were just seeing that so many projects were jumping into Solana, and it felt like really fleecing this community. Like they were not actual, and this is not to say that like every founder needs to have like a massive track record to be a success, right? But, we were just noticing that it was like, we drew a parallel between the music industry and what was happening on Solana. In the music industry, you had the advent of digital recording technology. I mean, even as we do this podcast in your room, right? This is like a primary example of how technology has increased and the barrier to entry has gone down super low.
Yeah.
You've got a couple cameras set up, a couple microphones, and we sound just as professional as like a fucking television studio, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And that's the same thing you had with the music industry. You had digital recording technology came in. It made it really easy to record. Everyone just used a laptop. And then you go from there to releasing it on the internet. And what did you need? You started to need curation. You needed like a Spotify playlist. Otherwise you like don't know what to listen to because there's just too much volume. And Solana, I think it still is even having that problem, but back then it was really having that problem, right? I mean, I think there's a launch on Magic Eden's Launchpad every single day of the week.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like that's insane, right? And I guess it's even worse than that music. Like I remember going in and meeting with some like legendary manager, and he was telling me, in 1970, there was only like 70 albums that got put out that year. Like, how many albums we get every day that are coming out? It's like insane. So you needed curation. And that's kind of where we came up with the idea for WAGMI Beach. We realized that we've spent our careers, building brands, in music and entertainment world. We understand culture, and, we can always be looked at as someone to trust, and founders that where our intentions are. And so, we brainstormed, how are we going to, like, what's our first project going to be? And the list of names that we came up with and things we did were so goofy at that time. But, we kept coming back to a whale as like the most aspirational thing. Like you want to, aping is like an action, but like you want to be a whale. And so we came up with, whales as what we were going to try to do. We felt like no one had really done it, in an exciting and cool looking way yet. And it was actually very hard to do. It took us a while to get that art right. Then we came up with the Catalina Whale mixer, and kind of the rest is history.
There we go. Yeah, I mean that's a great background, because I remember when you guys minted in December, right?
Yeah.
So, and I felt like December was a pretty like ugly period in Solana, right? A lot of people have been rugged recently. People were kind of apprehensive. I remember when I first saw you guys, I had looked into your background and I was like, man, it feels like I live in LA. I know you're in LA. There's so many like LA music people that were involved with Catalina Whales, and I was like, part of me was like, is this going to be like a cash grab? Or are they like super into the NFT community? Because it also felt like at that time there were so many projects that were coming out where it was like, you saw these random music artists that would drop a project, and then next thing you know, they took the money and just ran with it and like never came back to it. And so I was like, I don't know if Catalina Whales is going to be that, or if it's actually going to blow up, or is it going to be like super relevant in LA but not relevant other places. And so it was one of the more interesting projects where I couldn't wrap my mind around like what I thought was going to happen with you guys, because on one hand, you guys have one of the most successful track records of like the people who work with you guys, your team, outside of NFTs, has one of the most successful track records of anybody I've ever seen. But at the same time, you know, you never really know what somebody's background is with the NFT world, right? Now I know it. Now talking with you about it, I'm like, okay, so he was in there. He was, you know, he was balls deep just like I was. But it's, you know, it's one of those things like you never really know until you have a conversation like this and things like that. And so it was, you know, that's one of the things that I found really interesting, especially as I was diving more into your project recently, kind of looking at like what you guys are doing and kind of where you want to take things. And it's just, it's really, really cool to see people that have been as successful as you guys doing this and putting so much energy into it. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see where it goes. But the question I have for you is, when you guys started, what was your goal? Like, obviously, you guys had already been very successful in the music industry and everything like that. Now coming into NFTs, where did you think Catalina Whales was going to go versus like where it's at right now?
This is exactly where I thought I was going to go.
There we go.
Yeah, you can check all the text messages when all my friends were asking me like, oh, what about, you know, what do we do? What do we do? And I'm like, guys, we're going to go to 100 soul floor and above. You'll see. And it's funny because when we hit 100 or whatever it is now, it was all those text messages of screenshots of me saying that like in December. Yeah, I mean, again, to me, it's just, I really fuck with the whole Solana, you know, ecosystem, and I want to see the whole ecosystem win. And I think we only win by getting, you know, bigger and more exciting attention onto our space, right? And that's why, you know, so the next project WAGMI Beach is putting out is this one called Goose Ballers, and the founder of that is this legendary producer in the animated TV world named Carl Jones, who produced the Boondocks and Black Dynamite and a bunch of other incredible shows. I think he's got a handful of shows that are about to go to series again. And, you know, I think that's like a prime example of what we're trying to do here. You know, we have all, like, our friends run the labels, right? Our friends run the agencies. Our friends manage the biggest talent on the planet. And what we've seen over the last like 18 to 24 months is they're getting phone calls. People are dangling money in front of them. And some of them are making decisions that are not good for the artist brand, right? And that's kind of like a big thing we talk about with, you know, people we're considering doing collections with, or people are just, you know, we're kind of pitching because we're trying to convince them, don't do X. Like, this is why you need to do Y. And the real difference between us and like a competitor who is, you know, let's say you're running some sort of I don't know. I don't want to like some sort of a launch pad, let's say,
Yeah.
right? You know, or you're going to you've been putting out all these projects and you have this big example of this, you know, how much money you made this celebrity. To us, it's like, because we've spent so long protecting artist brands and building artist brands, we aren't approaching this like, it's not about extracting value from the ecosystem. It's about creating value for the ecosystem and bringing value into the ecosystem, as well as creating value for that brand, that artist, that talent, that label, whatever it might be. And I think a lot of people aren't looking at that. So when we're having these deep conversations and we're pitching people on, like, you know, even Carl, I think Carl just understood that like we were going to add value to his brand and he was going to add value to this ecosystem. And it wasn't the other way around. We weren't going to just, you know, use Carl's name to extract value out of an ecosystem and then have that be a negative on Carl's brand.
Yeah. So how do you guys view, I guess, like WAGMI Beach in the grand scheme of things? Because you guys obviously have the Catalina Whales underneath that. You have the Beached Whales coming out soon too in July. And then you guys have Goose Ballers. And so Goose Ballers is technically like a collaboration, right? It's not, is it like, how, I guess, does that infrastructure all work together?
It's a great question. Basically, I think it's, you know, we draw parallels to things. So our real goal, right, is to, and people got over us saying it a lot, but our real goal is to build a global brand. And, you know, what are verticals and tenets of a global brand? You know, you and how do you infiltrate the zeitgeist? And you do so by things like television or, you know, music or, you know, large scale events or integrating with cultural icons, etc. And so, you know, for a while there with the Whales, we would just get on and we were really like hesitant to put out a roadmap. and we did put out something. We put out a blueprint. But what's funny is with these blueprints, these roadmaps, they kind of start to like put you in a box, and you need to like constantly be able to evolve. And it's almost like way better if you guys didn't need that from me and you just looked at our history and figured, I'm going to actually put some faith in these guys that they're going to deliver. But let's put that to the side. You know, how do these things live in a world? So I guess you could call it, if WAGMI Beach is Disney for adults, then our Catalina Whales is our Mickey Mouse, right? And then after that, you have tons and tons of different verticals and iterations that you might have. So Bubble Goose Ballers is another, you know, world under this Disney umbrella, right? So, you know, our goal, and it won't always be this way for every project, because we're going to bring interesting projects into the space that might not, you know, need a TV show or a music vertical or a film, right? But at least like our goal right now with these projects is to basically be getting you, you know, building like the Pokemon before like the TV show, right? You're participating, you're buying this like collectible, and like you're trusting that or you believe that we're going to be building this like really cool world around it. And so like you get, you know, deeper and more involved and more excited by that world. So as it pertains to Whales, you know, right after our mint, some like really big television production studios started reaching out to us because of our relationships. They saw what we were doing. They were really excited. They saw the content that we were putting out, and they started seeing like what this could do. So our, you know, one of our main goals is to really turn this into a television show, and have this kind of live as a next vertical. With Carl, right? Carl is basically thinking about how he can paradigm shift the television business as a whole. He, you know, he has relationships with the studios. He can get things greenlit all the time. But, you know, what Carl's run up against in his career is constantly trying to push boundaries really far and having someone say, oh, I don't know, that joke's like a little too far. I don't know, man. You know, that animation style is too expensive or whatever it might be. And you know, he told an incredible story at VCon, and I definitely can't do it justice, about how he actually had Bubble Goose Ballers picked up by, I believe it was Adult Swim. And, you know, they had some creative differences. And he tells, I'm sure it exists somewhere, but he tells like the plot of the first episode at VCon, and it was just so insane. But, you know, if Carl can prove that he can build a community first, a community that falls in love with this art, a community that believes in him and the project, then you flip it, right? It's kind of like in music. What you do now, you used to like get signed to a major record label and they break you. Now you like do your best to break yourself first and then sign to a major record label. And if you can tap into this NFT collector culture and build communities first for rich IP, then you can go, and Carl can now shoot the pilot and create the pilot and then go to the studios or the streamers and say, look what we've done. Are you guys interested in jumping on board now? Instead of, you know, pitching them and having someone in a room decide, no, I don't like that idea. You know, the community is going to tell you that idea is fucking sick. And once you have that community, you can go show them.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the more interesting parts about, like, you know, kind of the way the entertainment industry works now, is that you used to kind of have like, I mean, I guess like the odds were stacked against you of you were basically hoping that somebody would discover you and then like want to put money and time into you and things like that. With the advent of social media and everything like that, now you can build up that, you know, hype for your own self. And like, I don't need somebody to like help me launch a podcast. I can just put a podcast out. And then if people support it and everything like that, then the money and everything will come as you build up your audience, your community, everything like that. And so, you know, that's one of the interesting things with what you guys have done and what you guys talk about doing and things like that, is that I feel like when we talk about roadmaps and whatnot, a lot of projects will say, oh, we're going to do this or we're going to do that or whatever. But most of them have never done anything remotely on that scale. And so even like with a lot of projects back in the fall time, everybody said they had a game coming out, right? And
it was insane.
Yeah. And to me, I was like, you know, are we ever going to get one of these that it's actually somebody that has a gaming company and they're just launching an NFT alongside it? Like, for example, if Fortnite put out a Solana NFT, it would be absolutely massive, right? But Fortnite they built that trust with people because they've had a video game for the last, you know, however many years. So, but with what you guys are doing and your technical background and everything like that, the thing is, you guys have done incredibly impressive things outside of the NFT space. So when you guys talk about doing a TV show, or with Carl, I mean, obviously Carl has done a ton already. And so it's like, yeah, that's 100% possible. And it's not something where it's like, oh, that's just a dream of what we want to do. It's like, I would be shocked if a year from now, the show isn't out and it's massive, you know? And that's kind of the way that I think what gives you guys that advantage is you guys have the background, have the connections in a place like LA where, you know, these things can happen in a phone call or a meeting or, you know, whatever. And so it's just a really interesting position that you guys are in. And the animations that you guys have put out, I think they're hilarious. Like,
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know, I guess when I first saw the art, if like, I guess I was like, I don't know, is this a PFP project? Like, you know, whatever. And then I remember when I saw the first animation, I was like, okay, these are legitimately funny. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, I'd be down to watch this show. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting thing that you guys are building. And I guess, like, what would you say, what do you think is going to come next? Like, in terms of, you guys have talked about the Whales, like television, the Whale records, like, what do you think is going to come next? All right, real quick, I got to interrupt this episode of the podcast to tell you guys about a new sponsor. Now, before you call me a sellout, I promise you I'm not doing that. I'm not ruining the integrity of the show. I'm not just accepting any sponsorship opportunity. I'm not doing that. I actually reached out to this company, and this company is called HeyWallet. And I reached out to them because somebody had actually used HeyWallet to send me Solana. And so when they did that, I was like, what is HeyWallet? I'm not familiar with them. How does this work? Everything like that. Basically, HeyWallet is a way that you can send somebody cryptocurrency without knowing their wallet address. All you have to know is their Twitter username. So, for example, if you're watching this podcast and you're like, oh my God, this is the most amazing podcast I've ever seen, I want to send Marc 1,000 Solana. What you would do is you would create an account on HeyWallet. You would load it just like any other wallet, and then you would tweet, HeyWallet, send Marc Colcer 1,000 Solana. And boom, I get 1,000 Solana. And so immediately there's a transaction on Twitter which you get to see, and then there's also a receipt for that, and it goes up right on SoulScan. So you can basically see everything with the whole transaction right then and there. And that's one of the coolest parts about HeyWallet, is that there's the social element to cryptocurrency. And that's what I thought was really, really cool about it, because Twitter is such an important thing for the Solana space. And one of the big things I talk about all the time is onboarding people into the space. And so what easier way to do that but then by saying to somebody, hey, get onto Twitter, I'm going to send you Solana through HeyWallet, and boom, now you're ready to go. You're ready to buy NFTs. You're ready to do this. You're ready to do that. And actually, one of the new features of HeyWallet is that you can actually send NFTs back and forth through HeyWallet. So it's just a really easy way to transact, and it's an easy way to send somebody Solana without having to ask them for their wallet address or anything like that. So if you want to show appreciation to somebody, like I said, hey, if you're watching this podcast, you're like, this is the most amazing podcast ever, and you want to send me Solana, all you got to do is go HeyWallet, send Marc Colcer 1,000 Solana, and bang. I'll retweet that. I'll quote tweet that. I'll do the whole nine. So that's the new sponsor of the podcast. So I want you guys to show some love to HeyWallet. We're going to be doing some really cool giveaways, doing some really cool contests and things like that, because I'm all about onboarding new people into the space, about giving back to people in the space. And that's what I talked about with HeyWallet. And that's why I agreed to work with them, is because they're all about that too. And so, yeah, that's why I brought HeyWallet into the podcast, and I'm looking forward to working with them. And now back to the episode.
You know, I don't really want to like pinpoint it, because some things are going to come in a wave, and some things might come before and after. But I could give you, like, you know, background, which we've talked about pretty often with our holders on our Whale Wednesday podcast every week. But, you know, we have like a red line that we've been going back and forth on with a pretty tremendous tier 1 production company about the television show. But we've also, you know, those conversations started in January. And it's May. And it's not that we couldn't have closed those conversations. It's just that new conversations are showing up. And you can't. So, like, a community wants news, right? But we want the best product. We're like building for the long term. As much as everybody wants news today, tomorrow, and the next day. Like, sometimes it's going to be better for you guys to just trust us that we're actually going to go get whatever we think is best, right? So we've had some really incredible new meetings that have come up. It seems like we might be pitching to a pretty big, a pretty like large media conglomerate soon in tandem off of one of those meetings. So that's on the television side. On the music side, again, you know, because of our careers, we're really close with the heads of every major record label. And so Ben from our team has been kind of leading that charge. He's an incredible A&R, incredible manager, and works with Carlo, Josh, you know, for the last 20 years or whatever. And Ben, I'd say we're like pretty close to, inking a deal that will be like this joint venture with a major record label that will kind of start to fund that vertical of this world. And we kind of imagine that as like a two-pronged thing. We imagine that as like, let's say like a guerrilla style, band with Whales as like the front men, so to speak. But we also see it as a way to like put people on from the community, both in records that maybe they submit to us that we end up putting on the map, but also B, like, once we have a deal, we can start distributing records that are being created by our community. We can start like really putting people on. And we just announced last week that, we were starting to take submissions, and we got some fucking heat in the inbox. It's like kind of insane. So I'm really excited to see where all that stuff goes. So I don't want to like put like an exact definitive date on when things will happen, but all these things are fucking happening in real time.
Do you think there's any way, and this is just me kind of brainstorming here, is there any way for you guys to do something where you give other people in the Solana community, somebody who may not have a Catalina Whale, maybe they can't afford it, a way to submit to your record label essentially, and then there's some sort of benefit that then comes to your holders from that person putting out a song, but therefore opening up to more people to be able to submit to it? Because obviously the only issue we get into is if there's somebody who can't afford a Catalina Whale, but they've got some, incredible music, obviously you guys are going to want to find the most talented people possible. Bonus points if they have a Catalina Whale, right? But maybe there's a way to make it so that more people in the Solana space could essentially submit to you guys, and then there's a way to give back to your holders as a result of that. And then, and then you guys almost become like this like, I don't even know the exact wording for it, but like this project in the Solana space, it's giving back to everybody. And then on top of that, if you are part of the Catalina Whales, you have this added benefit, yada, 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 but just making it so that you're able to, I guess, like almost become like more loved in the community, because people are like, man, hey, Catalina Whales, they're good people. Like, I didn't have a Catalina Whale, but I had this incredible song. I sent it over to them. This happened. Now their holders get this benefit, whatever that is. But it just, maybe increases the odds of like, some massive hit coming from the Catalina Whales.
I think it's funny. Everyone's like always constantly thinking about like, what is the benefit to their holders, right? The benefit to the holders is actually like how big we get the brand to go. Right?
Yeah.
Like everyone wants us to just be bigger. It doesn't need to be like a granular thing that flows down to the holder in theory, right? If someone from another community gave us a huge record and Whales were the front men for that huge record, and that record became a global smash, and everywhere, you saw the Whales, there's your benefit, right?
Right.
It trickles down. The world of the Whales grows. So yeah, I mean, I think an idea like that is great. I mean, to be honest, like the way we're doing it right now is not very like Web3. It's pretty rudimentary. It's literally an email address that people are sending in demos to. So TBD, how much has that spread outside the whale community, or that's directly from the community. I do think as we roll out projects like Beach Whales, as we roll out projects like Bubble Goose, the WAGMI Beach world continues to grow, and then your access points to our world, become more affordable for new people so that they can start to participate in these unique different verticals. I do see it at some point as being a place where it's like gated in the submission portal and something like of that nature. But yeah, I don't know. I'll think about that idea for sure. But I do think as we roll out, Bubble Goose is 10,000 and we'll see where things go.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the more interesting parts right now is that even like when I've had, every project that I've had on the podcast now, and I think I've had, 5 or 6, I only own one of them. So I get the question every time from people being like, everybody in their community being like, all right, Mark, so when are you buying one? And I'm like, guys, listen, money doesn't grow on trees here, okay? I don't have, 5,000 sold to just be throwing around on a regular basis. And I think it's one of those things where I do feel like more now than ever before, we're seeing like the Solana space, like really trying to help each other. And I think that's one of the cool aspects. And so, I think that's something that if there's a way that you guys position yourself where it's almost like the American Idol of Solana space, and Catalina Whales is putting that on, and they want all the talent to come in, that's where we're going to find the most talented people in this space. And that's where we're going to truly see things really, really grow. Because you talked about like Martin Garrix. If the next Martin Garrix came out of the Solana space, that would not only do massive things for Catalina Whales, but just for the Solana space in general of adding credibility to it, right?
No doubt.
And I think that's the one thing that we're we're probably lacking right now is that when it comes to like, big brands, every project is like, we're trying to grow the biggest brand in the world. And it's really difficult to grow a huge brand, right? And so we've really only seen Bored Apes do that. We haven't really seen a lot of other projects do that, and we're trying to make that happen. But the way that we do that is by having things that people who are outside the NFT space start finding out about, right? And so we're seeing that with Bored Apes, where that becomes more and more common, more and more people know about it. But then again, if you ask some random person who might know about Bored Apes, hey, do you know what Yuga Labs is? They're probably like, no, what the hell is Yuga Labs? And it's like, okay, so we still have a long way to go on the educational side of things. But if we have the next Justin Bieber or Kid Laroi or, Martin Garrix or whoever come out of the Solana space, that's going to add so much credibility. And that's the sort of shit that I look forward to, because that is what's going to have mainstream adoption. And mainstream adoption brings in more liquidity into the market and everything like that. And that's where, like, we'll stop arguing over these, like, 100 floor prices. We need to get to 1,000. But the only way we do that is by, once again, bringing more people into the space, bringing in more liquidity and things like that. And we do that by, having things cross over from the NFT space into real world. And so, all it takes is you guys, dropping one massive artist who then, songs blow up. They're on Spotify, New Music Friday, blowing up everywhere. And then people find out about Catalina Whales, and it's getting picked up by, major news publications and things like that, and boom, Solana is at the front page of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely onto something for sure. I think, like you said, everything is about how we bring on new people into this space. I don't necessarily like. I don't know that our. I don't know that our goal. I mean, I don't know. I think that idea is great in theory, right? If we identified the next whoever based on that, I don't know that's necessarily the goal, right? The goal is like, I think that would be a really cool, flywheel effect, right? Like, because we've taken this stuff in, someone ended up getting a shot, their record becomes the record that is like fronted by these whales. People now know them in this world. That record ends up getting big. Now they have all these relationships and contacts that they didn't have. I think that's probably the way it goes more, right? Because the way we're thinking about it is kind of like, it'll be fronted by this act, right? By these whales versus like just a record, it's not, and who knows, maybe it evolves and we're actually like putting out records from the community in a way that's like not necessarily related fully to the whales and the whale art. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it like that. Ben would probably have some more insight on how he's thinking about that moving forward. But, I do think what you touched on is actually like a really important piece of this puzzle. And I've said this before too, but, sometimes you spend a lot of time looking for the things you want to fill outside of your community and outside of that world. But really, it was always right there in front of you. A perfect example is this guy, Syracuse, who is, the head of marketing and running digital for Bubble Goose Ballers. We spent a long time trying to figure out running LinkedIn ads and so on, trying to get people to come on to scale up the team. And there, right in front of us this whole time, was this kid, Syracuse, in our Discord. And he actually won this like contest we threw. We threw this contest where it was called Whale Wars, I think it was, where basically you had to do these like different games over 3 weeks, and the winner got flown out to LA. They went to, we had a suite of the Lakers game. They had like 7th row seats. They took a helicopter to Catalina, blah, blah, blah. And Syracuse won that. And, a couple months later, he was hitting us up. He's like, I'm graduating. You guys, should pay attention, blah, blah, blah. And is there an opportunity for us? And we took a chance on Slatty, and it's been like the most rewarding thing ever. And we continue to do that. So there's this guy, Kenny Loaded, same thing. Kenny spent the last decade like working it in and out. And like we just, Kenny's just started creating this different content, and we were like, yo, let's just put Kenny on, have Kenny start helping out scaling the whales. Another guy, Chill Bill, who's literally like becoming a fucking dentist right now. But like in his free time is like pumping out unreal content for us because he just fucks with it. And so I think at the core of what you were getting into is like, it's actually important to like continue to put the ecosystem on every fucking way. And I think we're trying our hardest to constantly do that, to scale WAGMI Beach to the way we want it to be. I think we're at 10 people now working all the time. Maybe it's probably even larger than that, and I'm off. But, this needs to be a 20, 30 person company with haste, right? We're already spread too thin. I mean, coming here, driving an hour, doing this for an hour, and then driving an hour is like, my phone's gonna be fucking insane when I turn that thing back on. But yeah, the putting the whole ecosystem on and an all boats rise mentality, I think is super important. I think sometimes project founders are getting super siloed into like me, us, but it's really we. We all need to fucking win. And things like OK Bears popping up out of nowhere, like, and bringing all this volume and liquidity to the market. What's better than that for everybody? Are we, you can't shit talk that project. That would be fucking insane. Like, congratulations to those founders. Congratulations to those people, those holders. Like, we're so appreciative that exists, and then new projects keep popping up and raising the bar for other projects and bringing in new people and new interests. And so, yeah, all boats rise. We.
Yeah, and I think that's even like with the podcast. When I first started it, my buddies were like, "So are you just gonna invite on all the projects that you own?" Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Well, first of all, I don't own many that are like incredibly successful, so that would be a short list. But second, I was like, no, I want to bring on a ton of projects because I think there's so much that you can learn from. There's going to be people who watch this podcast that launch a project 8 months from now, and they're like, hey, I was listening to the Catalina Whales podcast. It gave me this idea. Next thing you know, I dropped my project, right? So, my whole goal with this is like to bring more light and attention to various projects. I've learned a ton about various projects because, to be honest, like, because I don't own, a ton of them, I'm like, I'm not looking into, Catalina Whales, like into your announcements and everything like that. But then last night I read every single one of your announcements since mint day. And crazy. So, it's like, I try to do my research and things like that. And so, my goal is to, learn as much as I can about the Web3 space, come up with ideas, brainstorm ideas. Even Trippin' Apes had their release today, and I've been talking to their founder for the last few months, just kind of like, giving him some random advice from time to time, things like that. He'll bounce ideas off of me, and we've become buddies through that. But it's like, the goal with that is to increase the successful projects in Solana, because it only benefits us when we have more successful projects. Every time we have a massive rug, or every time we have a project that blows up and then goes to zero, that's not good for the Solana space. We need more projects that are killing it. I want you guys to be at 1,000 sold, very, very soon. I'm not even I was going to say a year from now, but like, I want it much sooner than that. And then I want you guys to be one of 20 projects that are at that floor, because that's what we need to do to get to the levels that we get mainstream adoption and everything like that. And that's why I liked your point earlier, and you're not huge on roadmaps, because neither am I, because this shit changes so quickly. You guys were chilling around I feel like a 20 floor for quite a while, and now you guys have, what are you guys at, like 100 right now or close to? And it's like, that went all of a sudden, like, you guys are at 20 pretty consistently, hovering around 30, coming back to 20, whatever, and then boom, moonshot to 100, right? And so, of course, at that point, what you guys have, in the works and everything like that, it should change because you got more liquidity that you can use to go do various things or hire some other people, or like you said, like, you guys are already, running thin on everything. Like, okay, so maybe 2 months from now, you're like, hey, we have 25 people on staff, right? And so it's hard to have a roadmap, because a roadmap is also, like you said, it puts you in a box. And when you don't have that roadmap, or it's a little bit more flexible, then you can kind of roll with whatever's happening, versus like keeping yourself in this box of like, well, we told our holders that we're going to do exactly this, when it's like, truly the best thing, now we've learned, and now the best thing is truly to go this opposite route. And I do think one of the benefits of the podcast and things like that is people now, after hearing a founder talk, they have more trust in the project. And so if things kind of detour a little bit, or it takes longer for them to pull something off or whatever, we're a little bit more understanding of that now, versus like a few months ago, it felt like if a project didn't have like a massive announcement every single day, then people were like, fuck this project, I'm out.
Dude, yeah. I got a story for you. We're right, and this leads to two different things. So right after mint, right, I think we minted on the 18th of December. And basically, and I could be wrong, maybe it was a couple days before, whatever. But the story is that, like, we have to move. Let's say we were minting on a Wednesday. We had to move to mint on a Thursday. Or maybe we were minting on a Thursday. We had to mint to a Friday. And so I'm actually in New York. My artist Eden has a sold out show. And he calls me and tells me, I got bad news. I think I have COVID. So now I'm in New York. So this is like Wednesday. And the mint is Thursday or whatever. Fuck the days. Just, you understand what I'm saying? The point is that, like, he calls me, he has COVID, we have to cancel the shows, these 2 sold out shows. And it's a bummer. But now I'm like in this hotel room in New York, and I'm working basically 24-hour days. Like I looked at my phone at the end of this week and saw that I had days that clocked like 18 hours of screen time. You know what I mean? Which is fucking disgusting.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like my brain hurt, everything hurt. And I'm with my wife. She's in New York with me. Our kids are back home. Her sister's watching our kids with a friend of ours. And we basically like, we fly home and we don't mint yet. Right. We postponed the mint, but all these all-nighters, because there's problems with the R-Weave, there's problems with the art gem. We need to get it all right, blah, blah, blah. And we fly home and we mint out, right? And the moment we mint out, it goes absolutely nuts. But in tandem with that, our son, our newborn Kai, who's like 10 or 11 months now, so he was 4 or 5 months then, he's ripping like 102 fever.
Oh, shit.
And so, I'm downstairs, I'm screaming, we're minted out, we're excited, we're pumped. Now it's like, what do we gotta keep the momentum going, we gotta communicate to all these people, holy shit, because really your fucking job starts after you mint. It's like insane. And I have a phone call with these people who were working with us on marketing at that time, and one of them mentions like, yeah, I got COVID. Everyone who went to see Fred again play at the Roxy has COVID, or it was either Roxy, whatever. And the light bulb goes off my head, and I'm like, yo, Amanda, who was watching our kids, was definitely at the Fred again show, right? So boom, we literally have to like. We end up in this insane world where all of us, my 2 kids, my wife and I, all get COVID right at mint, right? And when the kids get COVID, it's like a little bit more scary and gnarly for us because like they're can't communicate that well, blah blah blah, and while all this stuff is happening, right? Like all this attention is coming to the whales. And so it's just like peak insanity for my life. We had to long story, we had to leave our house and move into this small place with the kids. And it was just fucking insane. But come I think it was Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, we had just ripped up to, let's say, a 12 soul floor pretty quickly. And Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, the amount of FUD in our Discord was so insane. Coupled with me ripping a fever and the kids screaming, and my wife can't believe that I'm taking all these phone calls and these Zooms while sick, trying to keep the ball moving during fucking Christmas or Christmas Eve, right? And I mean, this is just a long way to say everybody in that chat that day was just fudding the project because we weren't making an announcement every day. That was all they were fucking talking about. And I was sitting there thinking, I was writing this, the SBF, the famous quote. I was like, sell all your whales you want at 3 fucking soul. I do not care. Yeah. Guys, I'm like a family and we have a life to live. I'm not going to make an announcement for you guys every day. And that was the same day we integrated Grape and made it so all the whale holders could be the only ones in the chat.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh man, once we did that, it was fucking
all the fun just goes by.
I was like, cool, it's gone now. I'm going to go take Tylenol and sleep for a little bit so I can feel better. But yeah, I mean, this whole space and the way people want this constant contact, it's really untenable at scale. It's, artists have this same experience, right? Artists have fans who tell them exactly what they think they need to be doing or what they should be doing every fucking day, right? And they jump in your comments. You announce a tour. You spent 6 months planning this tour, a year. You announce that tour, you're so excited, and then all the comments are, when this place, when this place, when this place, when this place, right? For Garrix, it was put out a record that was pop leaning. Oh, but where's the dance record? Put out a dance record. Oh, but where's the big pop record? And it just never fucking ends, right? And what you have to always do is remember that you and the team and where you want to go is true north. And you can hear it. And I mean, the Web3 thing is a little bit different, right? Because I enjoy talking to our biggest holders, and I've made some sick friends out of there who are so smart and who have built incredible businesses on their own. But it's important to you can't always govern by committee, right? The DAO thing doesn't work. We're seeing that in different NFT projects, right? You need a team that is true north and we know where we're going to go. So yeah, this addiction for more and more news, this flipper mentality of we need to I'm going to flip into the hype and sell in the blah, 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 blah. It's just it's pretty disgusting. And you got to just fucking build.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's true facts, and I think people forget a lot of times is that there are actual human beings behind all of these various projects. And I'm like, I say to Frank every time I get together with him, I'm like, hey, can you like get some sleep, like some proper sleep, because like I don't want you getting burnt out 6 months from now. Like I want you to be able to continue doing what you're doing, but enjoy it, and have it where it is a sustainable lifestyle, right? Because like as you've been in business for a long time, it's like if you're pushing these 18-hour days and getting 2 hours of sleep and things like that, you're not helping people at that point because you're hurting yourself. And when you're hurting yourself, you're not as productive and things like that. Like I've said to people, with the podcast and all the other shit that I have going on, I'm very, very busy, but I get 8 hours of sleep every single night. Why? Because I'm not productive if I don't get my 8 hours. So, somebody, unless, I got the president calling me and telling me I need to get this done, I'm going to bed. So, I'm going to bed, I'm getting my 8 hours and making sure that like I still go to the gym the next day and take care of myself because I don't want to get burnt out in this space. And we got to remember there's real people behind every project. And like, so, when a project gets minted out, there's all this excitement about it and everything like that. But we also got to keep in mind that these project founders have been hustling their ass off for the last, 2 months, few months, like getting that mint day ready to go. And I get that like that's when the real work begins. Now you've minted out. Now you got holders you got to respond to and everything like that. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I want these founders to get some sleep because, I mean, you've got to be dead exhausted. It's like you got to be just so mentally wiped, and like the best ideas are not going to come to you when you're mentally wiped. You got to be fresh, you got to be alert, everything like that. And so I do think we're starting to see more trust in the space as people hear these sort of conversations. It's important for people to listen to these podcasts and things like that. And to, you don't have to own Catalina Whale to listen to this project or to this podcast. You should, because it just increases your overall knowledge of what these projects are doing behind the scenes and realizing that like we all got to calm the fuck down, in order to, if we talk about like WAGMI and we all want to make it and shit, well, we got to make it by like taking care of ourselves and taking care of everybody in the community and actually wanting people to stay rested during a time like that when your whole family's got COVID. And that's way more important at that point in time than the mint and everything like that. It's to make sure your kids are okay, make sure your wife's okay, things like make sure you're okay, right? Yeah. And so it's just a lot of shit. And so we got to remind ourselves from time to time, there's real people behind all of these things. And if we want to see a project do well, don't add more stress to an already stressed out individual.
Yeah, I also think it's like, people need to realize like you guys are buying a collectible to participate or believe in an ecosystem that is being built, right? Like if owning a baseball card stressed you out, then you shouldn't own that baseball card.
Right, yeah.
And that's, you should think about, people should probably think about it like that, right? Like, if you're excited that we're building this world with Catalina Whales, then that should be enough. Then you're like stoked you have one, and that's that. And you believe that we're going to keep bringing utility and value into the space and be building unique verticals, etc. But if you're, I think that's like actually, I never even thought of that until like right now. But like who like is stressed out because they own a fucking Pokemon card or a baseball card? Like if you guys shouldn't, if you're in a position where you're like, you've spent too much money on this item, like then maybe you shouldn't have spent that much money on it. Like if that collectible is not like something that, if you don't want to be part of that ecosystem or whatever, like, I don't know. I'm getting into the weeds, but I just think that like, you get a lot of people who put so much external pressure on the team. And this kind of like leads me to something you were saying before. And we've been touching on about these roadmaps, right? Like, I'm not a dev. I might be devs do something, but I'm not like a fucking dev, right?
Yeah.
And, we have a team member who's been helping us along the way, but like, our aspirations to build this, like we called it a Diamond Fins portal. They've been totally behind our schedule. And like, we've owned that shit, and I'll own it right now. Like that shit is behind schedule. But we're delivering on all the other things we can deliver on. And there are certain holders who are so upset that doesn't exist. But like all the other things, right? Like the when you minted Whales, our only promise was that we'll bring good projects into this ecosystem and you'll get access to that. And now we have our second one with like a 100,000 Twitter followers and like insane engagement. So like we're delivering on exactly what we said. Trust us, and we're going to continue to bring good projects into the space. All the other stuff we're doing with Whales is all just is sprinkled on added stuff. That wasn't what we originally said. We originally said we're going to come give you more. And now our blueprint was really just a way to give you guys a lens into like what our plans are and what we mean by building a brand and what we're doing. And then you read that blueprint, plus you understand our histories as founders and participants in entertainment and Web3 and so on. And you understand, like we could actually pull this shit off, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'd use this example, and I've never, I guess, thought of this until right now. But if you went to a dealership and you ordered a car, right, and they said to you it's going to take 3 weeks, right, whatever, right, and then in 3 weeks they come back to you and they're like, hey, it's going to be another week. We're working on something with the brakes and the airbags and shit. We just want to make sure we do things right, and you're like, no. I want my car
it now.
Yeah, ship it fucking right the now. Fuck now. Yeah. Would you actually say that? No, because you'd want your brakes and your airbag to be working, right? So, it's like, dude, we need a little bit of patience from time to time, because if you want something done right, you need to give it the space and everything like that. I understand on the holder side of things of like, you want, when somebody says something's going to be done by a certain point in time, you want it to actually reach that target goal. But so does the founder. It's just sometimes shit gets delayed. Like, that's the reality of it. So, even like, I exported the Solana Money Boys podcast episode, and then as I was exporting it, I had already exported the audio, and I was at the gym, and I was like, oh shit, I fucked up this part, right? So I came back here, I canceled the export, and then I had to I had to fix some things in it and then export it again, right? Which delayed the podcast coming out like 6 hours. And it's like, hey, it is what it is. Either I put out a podcast that's a 5 out of 10, or I do it right and make it, whatever it is, 8.5, 9 out of 10. I'd rather do it the right way and, make you wait a little bit longer than to put out some shit and have you be like, hey, Mark, by the way, you fucked up this part of the podcast. It's like, well, what do you want? Do you want me to do it right, or do you want it exactly when I say it's going to come out, right? And so it's just the reality of things that we need to be patient. We need to allow builders to build, and that like every day there's a new connection that you're making and there's a new conversation that you're having. Maybe you leave this podcast today and you're like, hey, I've got some ideas now, and you take them to your team, or maybe somebody in your community watches the podcast and they come up with some genius idea that they send over to you guys, and next thing you know, your whole entire roadmap changes, right?
Yeah.
And that's, that's the calm that we need to like remind ourselves to have during all of this, because if we truly want to see massive brands come out of this, if we want to see massive shit happening, then we also need to give projects the ability to build that and like take the time to do it right. OK Bears has made so much money in the last month or so, and that's great. But their roadmap before they're minted doesn't even fucking matter to me, because at the end of the day, they didn't expect to have the kind of money that they have right now. So now let's see you do some legendary shit, but we need to give you some time to do that, and that's the thing that, it's that middle ground of like, hey, let's let people build, and then at the same time, the founders and the teams need to do some epic shit. But like, we gotta find a nice like middle ground on all of it, of like keeping the holders happy, but then also allowing the founders to like take their time and do things the right way.
Totally, 100%.
So what would you say, like, in terms of somebody who obviously minted a Catalina whale, like they're obviously very happy with where you guys are at right now. And I know none of this is financial advice and everything like that, but for somebody who's let's say potentially going to buy one as they listen to this podcast, what would be your sales pitch as to why somebody should buy one right now? What's going to take you guys to 500 SOL?
I think everything you do in this space, if it's not just off vibes, it's a belief in the founders and the team to execute at that level. And so, yeah, if I know where we're going to go, and I knew in December it was 100 SOL, and I believe, we'll be 500 or 1,000 SOL, whatever it is. But I honestly we don't honestly like talking about floor price at all. It's not really like our thing. We're just going to keep executing, and all we give a fuck about is getting into the cultural zeitgeist, like with haste, right? And doing the things that matter. And some of those things there are marketing intangibles that people don't, that aren't quantifiable. Like putting up a plane at Coachella that said, Kanye was busy minting Catalina whales during the day when he was supposed to perform, and then ending up in USA Today, right? That's like a marketing intangible. There's no like, that didn't cost a ton of money to pull off, but the amount of eyeballs that got on that and the amount of people that you touched that way, that is how you end up in the zeitgeist, right? And yes, no doubt, like when you have a big project that has a crazy amount of volume or a super high floor price or whatever, that there's like this FOMO effect and these people getting in and so on and so forth. I just believe that we're going to execute on what we fucking said we're going to execute on. And, you know, and these things do take time, like you said. And so, yeah, you know, I think it's about having a belief in us and as the founders, checking out the blueprint, seeing where we're thinking about going with it. And then looking at what, you know, what our holders are about to get for having, for owning Catalina Whales, right? For if you own one Catalina whale, you're guaranteed, and you owned it up, you're diamond fin, which means you're holding it for a certain period of time. You are going to have 1-to-1 mint access for Bubble Goose, right? And then let's take it a step further. If you actually hold 5, you get 5 guaranteed spots plus 1 for free. If you hold 10, you get 10 spots plus 3 for free. So, you know, the people who've been riding with us since day one, guys like Jake, who, you know, bought a silly amount of whales and never moved him and never listed him, never did a thing. Jake has this opportunity to mint tons of Bubble Goose, but he doesn't even need to. He can just get his Bubble Goose for free. Yeah. You know, and still have a real position in Bubble Goose and still believe in us and what we're going to do with Carl. So, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to sell you guys on like why you should buy a whale. You should buy a whale because you fuck with me and you fuck with Carlo and the rest of the team, and you've seen what we built in entertainment and music, and you've seen what we've done as founders of Wave 7, and you've seen what we've done with WAGMI Beach so far, and you can imagine what else we're planning on doing.
There we go. So, all right, so let's talk about something fun then for a second. So, the Catalina Whale Mixer. So, the annual Catalina Whale Mixer. What's the plan for that? What do you want to see that build up to? Like, what do you think that's going to end up looking like?
You know, it's still a planning stages thing. We're working on putting this. The dream scenario is August to announce all of this information, but it's looking like, you know, I think we dreamed of doing it on Catalina, right? But what makes these events the best? And it's like being able to pull in people who might not have been able to be there, and getting people to Catalina. And let's say you need some external people who are interesting, right? Whether it's like artists or, you know, big people in the ecosystem. There's like a big lift to get them to Catalina.
Yeah,
it's not only the easiest, it's not only do you have to get them to LA, but then you have to get them from LA to like Long Beach from Long Beach to fucking Catalina.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And there's not like other shit going on there. So, you know, while we'd love to be doing it on Catalina, I don't think that's the plan. The plan is we're looking at probably doing it around Art Basel in Miami. So, you know, we have some incredible relationships, obviously, when it comes to putting on live events at like the highest level. So we have some of the coolest production companies, people that we've like aspirationally wanted to work with forever, who are now interested in the game. So we're deep in the planning stages for the mixer. So I think it's going to be hella fun. You know, we've gone to a lot of these like Web3 NFT ecosystem parties, and like we just want to beat it. You know, we want to make it better, make it something that we want to be at.
There we go. No, I love that. It's going to be really cool to see these events and things like that. I mean, even it feels like every time there's you know, like where we were at like 8 months ago, if you told me that some of these events that would be happening, I'd be like, there's no fucking way that, like, you know, Stoned Apes just had like Roddy Ricch perform, and it's like, that's epic. That's cool. And it's going to be even cooler to see like where these build to and how big these events are 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, right? As we get more of that, you know, mass world adoption and everything like that. So, you know, another question I had for you more on the technical side of things is you guys, as haven't done a staking coin, right? You guys have done, you know, kind of a more interesting, I guess, like reward system of if you're not holding, or if you're holding and you're not listing on Magic Eden or whatever, that you guys get into these different diamond fin tiers, right? So why did you guys decide to go that way versus a staking coin?
Because we don't want to be in violation of the SEC. No, I mean, look, we everything we do with the whales is calculated and thought out, and like, you know, it would have been really fun to rush out an emissions token, and like, trust me, our holders fucking wanted it, right? They were seeing DGOT's rip or Sets rip or whoever had, you know, staking for an emissions token, but like the truth is, I just like don't know what the rules are with that, and I have too much time building all this other things all these other, you know, parts of our puzzle to like vet this idea out and see how that plays out long term for us and our holders. And, you know, sometimes we're seeing people do a great job at this, actually. You know, DGOTs are doing it right now with like, you have to be constantly creating a use case for this token. Otherwise your token just goes to fucking zero and everyone's like staking for nothing. And like, you know, so yeah, so Forculus is his Twitter handle. He's a homie of mine. He actually, he actually said it himself, but I loved it. He's a big Moonbird holder. And he texted me, he goes, dude, I actually just read your blueprint. You realize that you guys came up with nesting before nesting? And I'm like, yeah, I know. But like, the truth is we just haven't been able to execute it yet. Cause we're trying to do this like non-custodial, and we're working with Cardinal now. It seems like it's something that's going to come out in the next couple of weeks. We're just, again, it's like, what's your priority? Is like getting everyone to lock their thing up, or like, should we get through Bubble Goose and then they can do it right after? And like, you got to pivot and keep it moving. But, we've partnered with, and this, we'll do like a big proper press announcement, et cetera, but we're partnering with Republic Crypto, who is a massive advisory firm out of New York City, advise projects like Zebek or Chingari or I'm going to butcher the list, but some of like the biggest Solana projects, as well as some of the biggest projects in all of Web3 on their tokenization, et cetera. So, you know, we're actively in conversation with them. You know, they are advisors to WAGMI Beach. You know, but we decided to not do an emissions route. We want to, you know, if we're ever going to tokenize or do anything like that, it has to be done right. We want it to be done at scale. We want to like bring value to our community, but we also want to like create value and expand the community by way of that, you know, token and so on. So there's a lot to think about. And, you know, like everything, even when I'm working in music, right? You hire the best agent, and then you don't like micromanage everything that they do. You trust them, right? You might have a question, but like your agent is going to help you navigate this world. And this is the same with like, I want to lean on the best in class to tell us this is how you guys should do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. It's an interesting thing, especially because like once you put out a token, if it doesn't have that use case, then it's just essentially worthless. Like you see, you know, a lot of projects that put out this token like right on mint day, and I'm like, dude, you haven't even said what that token is good for, but like, so people are hyped up about basically nothing, and then if you don't drop something immediately after that, then they're like, this is worthless, and I'm out, right? And they create FUD and everything like that. But we've seen with Dust, we've seen with GST, we've seen with Puff and things like that, that there are many ways to do it the right way, but it just takes a little bit of time and things like that, and you know, and it takes figuring out what works for you guys and your ecosystem, and putting the right people in that position to create the tokenomics around it, or you know, whatever way you're going to do it in a way that makes sense for your project, and that's something that it goes back to the whole patience side of things. Like everyone's got to have patience to have it done right and everything like that. So I guess the other question I have for you is, how much do you pay attention to other projects and what they're doing? And, you know, it seems like as of recently, we've had some really massive projects that have come out. We've seen OK Bears. We've seen Trippin' Apes today. We've, you know, obviously seen a lot of projects that have been blowing up as of recent. How much do you pay attention to what they're doing and you know, kind of thinking about, you know, is there an idea that they have that we should try to implement or do something similar to? How much do you pay attention or not pay attention to?
Comparison is the thief of joy, my friend. I've been preaching that for the last 15 years to my artists. Whenever we put out records, whenever we're when they're blowing up and they're looking at someone, oh, how come they got this press look, or how come they did that? It's really important to like be focused on you. No doubt, like, and the truth is, I don't know how many hours, like I don't have enough hours in the day to fucking look at everyone.
Yeah.
When I, you know, you see a story like OK Bears, like that's fucking sick. You know, like I haven't gone and like read each page of their website or like check their announcements or their tweets or whatever to formulate much of like a grander opinion, because I don't really have the time to go dig into all these different things and compare. You know, I'm a participant in this ecosystem. I'm minting things like Trippin' Apes. and I've been participating for a long time, but I do think it's like important to have focus on your project and not constantly be comparing and thinking, you know, if that was the name of the game, then we would have had an emission token in January. You know what I mean? But that's not, at least Carlo and I, that's not our work style. You know, and Alec, we're constantly just like thinking about delivering on what we've said we want to deliver and continuing to build new and exciting relationships that might spawn new and exciting ideas that aren't tied directly to what someone else is doing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, all right. So I know you need to get going here in a minute. So is there any alpha that you want to share with your community or a potential buyer down the road or anything like that? Anything that people should be looking forward to coming up, or anything that you guys are working on, even if it's just kind of giving a little hint here or there? Is there anything that you'd like to let people know about?
So basically, you know, like we were talking about how we've come up with this floating or, a way to stake or, stake your whale without emissions, but you're getting rewards in return. Something that we're working on and our goal and aspiration is what we've noticed is a lot of projects talk about this like IP and you own the IP and you can do all this cool stuff with it. But if someone lives in Ohio and like has a really famous ape, what are they going to do with that ape's IP? They're at a disadvantage to someone in LA in the entertainment industry who understands, oh, this is who I can call to leverage this ape's IP and turn this into something, right? What we want to do is try to flip that. And we think about everything in a Web3 way. So as we do this, you kind of like said something funny. You said American Idol, and I'm going to say a title that like fucking Alec hates. And I know it's not going to be it, but I always like, that was literally my train of thought was Whales Got Talent, right? Because like when we do these things like a television show, we're going to be casting your whale because we don't, we have the ability to use that IP, let's say in like a poster, right? Or whatever, but we don't own your whale, if we're showing the whole collection, but we don't own your whale to like make your whale a fucking actor, right? So we're going to have to license that back from the community. That's kind of like where we're trying to like go think about everything in a Web3 way. It's not like you have a 30,000 Twitter follower account and you have a whale PFP and I'm calling you up, hey, yo, we're going to license your whale for this TV show. No, we want to open that up to everybody who owns a whale. It would probably end up being people who own beach whales or whatever. I mean, TBD. But, based on how we have to expand these universes and let things exist and evolve. But I think that's a really exciting and unique opportunity here where like, you might own the least rare whale, but you might, your whale might end up being Cartman in like the next South Park. Right. And that's a fucking cool value prop.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. So I think that's really exciting. Again, I think, Bubble Goose Ballers is an example of like the type of level of projects we're going to bring into the space and knowing you have that access. And yeah, I mean, as we go and everybody who is, who might have missed the cutoff to get whitelist for Bubble Goose Ballers, you're going to be able to get free beached whales, for owning whales. So it's still valuable to buy a whale, and because if you believe in the project and you want to participate and get a beached whale and not have to pay them in price. Yeah. So those are all really exciting things in the short term that are all coming out fast.
There we go. So, all right. So where to wrap up, where can people find you?
I am Mr._George on Twitter.
There we go. And the Catalina Whales, what's the Twitter handle?
At Catalina Whales.
There we go. That's real simple to find.
It's verified too. So
there we go. So, well, hey man, I appreciate you making the time. I know you got a crazy day today. I'm looking forward to seeing everything, how it comes out. I'm looking forward to Bubble Goose. I've thought that art is incredible from day one. And
dude, Carl's such a legend. And so basically what happened was Carl has been like sketching that on his sketchbooks for like a decade plus. And we connected him with Moko. Moko is the artist behind the whales. And it was fucking nuts. Carl would just sketch out some shit and like get it like 95% there. And then Moko will put it in and finish it up. And it was like watching those two work was like mind boggling.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I'm very excited to see all the art come out for those and everything like that. But it's gonna be a fun. Solana summer, and
damn straight.
And it's gonna be a fun, just rest of time basically, because it's only gonna get crazier and crazier and crazier. But I'm looking forward to seeing everything that you guys do, and I'll have to get a whale soon. Once again, people are always gonna bitch at me. Hey, Marc, go buy one before you put out the pod.
Come on, Marco, what the fuck?
Come on, guys. Money doesn't grow on trees. Okay, I'm trying to get there. But no, I appreciate you making the time today, and looking forward to everything that you guys have coming out soon, and we'll take it from there.
Appreciate you. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yep. See you guys.